Guys, have you ever asked yourself the question, did the CIA do the Manson family thing? Because my man, Tom O'Neill, asked that question, and oh boy, look how many answers he provides. Today, we're going to talk about chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the secret history of the 60s. I mean, do you think that Charles Manson was an inside job? Do you think that the CIA did Charles Manson? Do you think that Charles Manson was an Epstein's Island situation? Do you believe that Epstein's Island was a Charles Manson situation? I don't know. He doesn't talk about Epstein. I don't know what I'm talking about. This is pretty good. This book was pretty good. I liked it. I think there's an interesting characteristic about Tom O'Neill and this book in general. And the interesting characteristic is that he is so unwilling, afraid even, to dive in to things that are even mislabeled as conspiracy theories, even though the majority of the book is him trying to dig up secret files and talk to people and try to get FOIA requests fulfilled. I mean, it's exactly the same language as something that is conspiratorial, only except in this instance, it's not. The thing is, everything that he finds, and I respect this about him because he's a journalist, everything he finds, his primary goal is to make it universally believable, leaving absolutely no room for doubt. Unfortunately, because of this standard, I think a lot of people that are expecting a more conspiratorial look at the whole situation are going to be a little bit disappointed because it doesn't really provide any answers, and he's extremely hesitant to accept any theories. So let's just talk about the basics. So if I was to tell you that Charles Manson and the CIA MK Ultra shit had a connection, you would probably think that I was insane. However, unfortunately, because of the Haight-Ashbury district and who all was involved, and this huge surgence in the hippie movement of communal living situations, with the usage of psychedelics, you end up in a situation where it does kind of benefit the CIA to have established some kind of base in Haight-Ashbury, just to keep an eye on things in and of itself. I mean, it does make sense. And when you get into not only Charles Manson's relationship to power in the music producers, specifically Terry Melcher, it gets weirder when you go down that road. And in the same way, it gets weirder when you go down the more hippie commune LSD route. And both of those two completely independent bodies unfortunately do have a direct tie straight back to the CIA. So whenever imagine the Charlie from It's Always Sunny corkboard, and but unfortunately he has figured out a way to get Jolly West involved in all of this in some stupid way. So what does that mean? I have no idea. In the same way as mind control shit and MK Ultra stuff, does that actually have some kind of application here? I don't really know. Unfortunately, so here's the primary thing that is proven beyond a shadow of a doubt in this book. If there's one thing that's proven, it's I'm not going to call the connection between Manson and Jolly West a proven connection. However, I will say that it's proven that Bugliosi, the guy who wrote Helter Skelter, was a fucking liar, man. He lied about that shit everywhere. And he was also the main prosecutor. So what do you think that means? And the more he goes into it, the more he finds little pockets of mistakes made by the prosecution where they just I don't know, maybe it's black magic. I don't know, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, whatever. Charles Manson himself was mind controlling people. But of course, taking that to its logical extreme, right? One has to assume that he learned it from someone, right? People don't just like spawn knowing this kind of shit. So again, that's where you get this awkward Jolly West connection. And not only that, but also like Charles Manson had one parole officer for a very long time. And this parole officer's one client was Charles Manson. He only watched Charles Manson. And of course, he allowed Charles Manson to do an awful lot of crazy shit in the meantime. Of course, Charles Manson was also arrested several times for doing things with underage girls, for drug-related offenses. And of course, he was never prosecuted for any of those crimes at the time. Never even taken in many circumstances. Very strange. And of course, when it all comes back into this like giant narrative, the strangest part of this whole thing, right? And it should be the strangest on its face, right? Is that the idea that the Manson family, the craziest thing you can imagine, a hippie cult who decided to go out and kill, to start a race war, and also maybe because of Satan, it's hard to know. Just imagining that existing and being exactly as described is just stranger than any more practical like explanation. It's just weirder. It's not Occam's razor to believe that they were doing all these things, where it is a lot more likely to suggest that it had connections to other things that were going on in the same area, in the same sphere, and amongst the same people. And although that connection is tenuous, it does offer an explanation that makes a lot more sense than the one that the prosecution has put forward for years and years. And due to an awful lot of FOIAs, we've confirmed more or less that a lot of these tenuous connections are a little bit more than tenuous. In fact, they might just be connections. It's hard to say. Unfortunately, Tom O'Neill had to write this book. I feel bad for him, and he talks about this a lot, how writing this book was difficult because you never know when you've reached a stopping point. And I'll tell you, like in my own personal work, I struggle with this too. It's hard to know when enough is enough, because you could just keep going. I mean, really, you can just keep interviewing people that are tangentially related to something, or you can just read more books and learn more and more and more. But eventually you're going to get to a place where your mind's made up. And not only is your mind made up, but you're not going to find those direct connections because, maybe they were destroyed, or maybe they never existed to begin with and you have completely lost your mind. It's hard to say, but one thing is for sure. There were some strange things going on in Haight-Ashbury in the 60s, and for whatever reason, nobody has thought to look into that until this guy. Thank God he did that, huh? Anyway, I've been May Leitz, and this has been Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. If you like this book, you should be able to pick this book up basically anywhere. I've been seeing it everywhere lately. I've been seeing it at every bookstore. I've even seen this at like more public. It came out in 2019, but this paperback, I think, is the difference. This paperback in and of itself is just... it's moving different, as they say. So check it out. It reads very, very quickly. I am a big fan of it. It definitely took me down a couple of other rabbit holes. And like, for instance, I don't want to talk about any of the details here, and I'm probably going to get shit for even bringing it up. But this also is like the anthropological side of the channel that I want to bring up. But if this here is not conspiratorial enough for you, hold on. You should read this. This is basically that, but instead of being careful about its tenuous connections, it's just like, fuck it, we throw connections all over town. Anyway, this is Programmed to Kill by David McGowan. We'll talk about this in the future, probably. But for whatever reason, that's the most related title I can think of at this very, very moment. Anyway, I've been Mayleets. Thanks for watching.